Most Ford mods people spend money on do not change much once the excitement wears off. The good ones are different. You feel them, use them, or benefit from them every single week. So in this video, I've put together the mods I recommend most often to my clients. Let's begin. Number 1. Ford Performance Tune. Most performance mods people buy for Fords are either underwhelming, badly chosen, or done in the wrong order. This is one of the few that can actually change how the vehicle feels in a way the average owner notices right away. A proper Ford performance calibration is not in the same category as some random file emailed from who knows where. The reason I rate it is because on the right Ford it can sharpen throttle response, improve shift behavior, wake the engine up, and make the whole vehicle feel less lazy without turning it into a reliability experiment. That matters a lot on trucks and SUVs where owners complain more about sluggishness and weird transmission behavior than outright lack of horsepower. This mod makes the most sense on vehicles like the Ranger 2.3 EcoBoost, F-152.7 or 3.5 EcoBoost, Bronco 2.3, and Mustang EcoBoost. Ford performance calibrations often sit around the $800 to $900 mark, so this is not cheap. But it is also not stupid money if the owner is keeping the vehicle for years and wants a real change instead of cosmetic nonsense. And this is where judgment matters. I would not tell somebody with overdue plugs, rough idle, a startup rattle, or unresolved shudder to tune the truck first. That is how people burn money. But if the vehicle is healthy and the owner wants a mod they can actually feel every day, this is one of the few where I can say the money went somewhere real. You press the throttle, the truck responds differently. The shift logic feels better sorted. The engine feels more alive. That is a lot more useful than spending similar money on parts that barely change anything outside the parking lot conversation. Number 2. Air Oil Separator. This is one of those mods that sounds boring until you understand what it is preventing. On EcoBoost Fords and even on Coyotes, oil vapor can make its way back through the intake system over time, and that is part of why some engines end up dirtier internally than owners expect. An air oil separator helps catch some of that before it keeps circulating where you do not want it. Now, this is not some magic fix that suddenly makes the engine bulletproof. That is exactly where people get stupid with mods. But on the right Ford, especially F-152.7 EcoBoost, F-153.5 EcoBoost, Ranger 2.3, Bronco 2.3 or 2.7, and Mustang 5.0, it is one of those preventative mods that actually makes sense if you plan to keep the vehicle for a long time. Ford Performance sells their own separators for several of these engines, and that matters. When Ford itself is offering the part, that tells you this is not just internet forum snake oil. Price-wise, depending on model, you are usually in the $160 to $220 range for a decent setup. That is not nothing, but compared to the amount of money people waste on fake intakes, decorative engine bay nonsense, or gimmick throttle spacers, it is real money spent in the right direction. This is especially worth considering for drivers who do a lot of city driving, short trips, or keep the truck for years. I would rather see somebody with a 3.5 EcoBoost spend money here than on some loud part that adds drama and no real long-term value. It is not flashy. That is exactly why it is good. It is the kind of mod bought by owners thinking ahead instead of owners shopping for noise. Number 3. Tailgate Assist. If you own a Maverick, F-150, or even an older Ford truck without a damped tailgate, this is one of the easiest mods to justify because you notice it every single time you use the bed. Without it, the tailgate drops like dead weight. That does not just feel cheap, it also puts more shock into the hinges, the cables, and whatever is in your hands when you open it. A basic tailgate assist kit is usually cheap. On a lot of these trucks, you are talking roughly $25 to $40 for the part, and installation is simple enough that most owners can do it at home in under half an hour. That is exactly why I rate it so highly. It is not some fantasy upgrade promising power gains. It is a small mechanical fix to a daily annoyance. Where this becomes even more worth it is if you actually use the truck like a truck. Tool bags, grocery runs, weekend gear, boxes, lumber, whatever. If you open that tailgate 5 or 6 times a week, the difference is immediate. It drops under control instead of slamming down, and over time that matters more than people think. I've seen owners spend $300 to $500 on cosmetic junk before doing something this simple, even though this is the kind of mod they would actually appreciate from day one. On a Maverick especially, where a lot of buyers are using it as an everyday pickup and not some weekend toy, it makes the truck feel more finished. This is the kind of mod regular people should like more. Cheap, useful, easy to install. and you get the benefit every time you touch the bed. That is how a smart mod should work. Number 4. Tonneau cover, bed cover. A lot of truck owners spend years using the bed badly and never stop to think that the fix is not complicated. They throw tools back there, groceries, camera gear, backpacks, work stuff, random boxes, then act surprised when half of it gets dirty, wet, sun-faded, or stolen. A good bed cover solves more daily problems than a lot of performance mods ever will. This is especially true on trucks like the F-150 and Maverick, where a lot of owners are not hauling bricks every day. They are using the truck as a mix of work vehicle, family vehicle, road trip vehicle, and everyday transport. In that kind of use, an open bed is not always an advantage. Sometimes it is just exposed storage with bad weather protection. The reason this mod is worth the money is simple. You use the truck bed more often once it becomes secure and practical. A decent soft roll-up cover might cost around $250 to $450. A better hard-folding setup can move into the $700 to $1,200 range depending on brand and model. That sounds like real money until you compare it with what people lose by not having one. One stolen tool bag, one wet load of materials, one weekend trip where everything in the bed ends up filthy and the cover starts looking cheap. I also like it because it changes the truck without making it worse to live with. No added noise, no drama, no weird side effects. Just a bed that becomes more usable. And that matters more than people admit. A lot of owners buy a pickup for versatility, then leave one of the biggest parts of that versatility completely unprotected. If somebody asked me whether to spend $900 on some pointless visual upgrade or put that same money into a proper bed cover on a truck they use every week, I would not even need 10 seconds to answer. Number 5. Rear sway bar for F-150. This is the kind of mod the average owner never thinks about until they drive a truck that feels better with one. It is not flashy, it does not look exciting in photos, and nobody at a gas station is going to ask you about it. But on the right F-150, especially one that tows, carries weight, or just feels a little too loose in the rear, a rear sway bar can make the truck feel more controlled in a way you actually notice. Where this matters most is not in some fake race truck fantasy. It shows up in everyday driving. Long highway bends, lane changes, uneven roads, ramps, windy towing days, and those moments where the rear of the truck feels like it takes just a little too long to settle down. A truck is still a truck, but there is a difference between normal truck movement and a rear end that feels sloppier than it needs to. This mod makes sense because it attacks a real weakness instead of pretending to create horsepower. If somebody uses an F-150 for towing a camper, hauling equipment, or just spends a lot of time on the road with weight in the bed, a rear sway bar can give the truck a tighter, more planted feel. That is the kind of improvement that makes the vehicle less tiring to drive and a little more predictable when things get busy. Price depends on the setup, but a decent sway bar kit usually lands somewhere around $250 to $500, plus installation if the owner does not do it at home. That is not pocket change, but it is also not absurd money for a mod that changes the way the truck behaves every time you drive it. I would take this over a lot of cosmetic garbage people bolt onto F-150s. Better control, better towing manners, less body movement, and no fake promises. That is exactly the kind of upgrade I respect. Number 6. Skid plates for Bronco. If somebody owns a Bronco and is serious about taking it off pavement, skid plates make more sense than half the stuff people buy first. Too many owners start with the fun parts, bigger tires, extra lights, cosmetic nonsense, and completely ignore the fact that the expensive mechanical parts underneath still need protection. That is backwards. A Bronco used on trails, rocky access roads, forest routes, or rough land does not need one unlucky hit to become expensive. All it takes is one bad angle and suddenly you are talking about damage underneath that costs far more than the protection would have. That is why I rate skid plates so highly. They are not there to impress anyone. They are there to stop a bad line from turning into a real bill. And the money side is exactly why this mod works so well in a video like this. A solid set of skid plates might cost anywhere from $400 on the lighter end to well over $1,000 depending on coverage and brand. That sounds expensive until you compare it with what happens when the underbody takes a hit in the wrong place. Even one damaged component underneath can push past that number very quickly, especially once labor enters the conversation. What I like about this mod is that it matches how the vehicle is supposed to be used. On a Bronco, protection makes more sense than pretending you need $10,000 in accessories before you even know how the truck behaves off-road. Start by protecting the expensive parts, then build from there. This is one of those upgrades that saves money by making the truck harder to hurt. That is smarter than a lot of the cooler mods people rush into first. Number 7. Rock rails, side steps for Bronco. A lot of Bronco owners get this wrong because they buy steps only for convenience or rails only for looks, and then realize too late they picked the wrong thing for how they actually use the truck. If the Bronco sees dirt, rocks, ruts, or even rough access roads regularly, decent rock rails or proper side steps are one of the smartest upgrades you can make. The reason is simple. Entry and exit matter every day, but lower body protection can save you from a much uglier bill. A lot of owners find out the hard way that the factory setup is fine until the truck starts getting used in real terrain. Then one bad spot, one awkward line, one misjudged edge, and the lower side of the vehicle takes the hit. That is where a proper rail starts making financial sense fast. This also depends on the owner. If somebody has a Bronco on bigger tires, lifted a bit, uses it for trails, and still has family getting in and out of it, the sweet spot is usually something that gives both protection and decent usability. That is why these sell so well. People want one part that makes the truck easier to live with without leaving the underside exposed. You can spend roughly $300 to $700 on simpler step setups, and proper rock rails or stronger hybrid options can move into the $700 to $1,500 range depending on brand and finish. That sounds like real money until you compare it with body damage, paintwork, or crushed lower trim because the truck touched somewhere it should not have. This is also one of those mods you feel immediately. You see it, you use it, and if the truck ever lands on it instead of something more expensive, you understand right away why it was money well spent. Number 8. Short throw shifter for Mustang manual. If you have a manual Mustang, this is one of the few mods you can feel every single time you drive the car without needing a dyno sheet, a fake horsepower number, or somebody online telling you the difference is huge. You feel it with your hand within the first few shifts. The stock setup on some manual Mustangs is not terrible, but it can feel longer and softer than it should, especially once you start driving the car the way people actually buy Mustangs to drive. A short throw shifter tightens that up. Less wasted motion, cleaner gear changes, and a more direct feel every time you move through the gates. That matters because this is not some once-a-month mod. This changes the car every day. City driving, back roads, highway downshifts, all of it. On a manual car, shift feel is a huge part of the experience, and a lot of Mustang owners spend money chasing noise or appearance before fixing one of the things they physically interact with the most. Pricing usually lands around $200 to $500 depending on brand and setup, and there are more expensive options once you start getting into premium kits. Even then, I still rate this highly because the value is obvious. You are not guessing whether it worked, you know. It also fits the kind of owner who wants the car to feel better without turning it into a project. No need to chase big power, no need to start opening up the engine. Just make the car more satisfying to drive every single day. For a manual Mustang, that is one of the easiest wins on the board. Number 9. Anti-wheel hop mod for Mustang. This is one of those Mustang mods that regular owners usually do not think about until the car reminds them why they should have. If you have ever launched the car hard, got into it from a stop, or felt the rear of the car start hopping instead of putting power down cleanly, you already know the problem. Wheel hop is not just annoying. It feels violent, messy, and cheap in a car that is supposed to put power down with some confidence. And once that starts happening repeatedly, it is not something I would just shrug off if the owner likes driving the car properly. The rear end is telling you it needs help controlling movement. That is why these lockout or anti-wheel hop style mods are worth talking about. They are not glamorous, and the average person has probably never heard of them, but on the right Mustang they can make the car feel far more settled when you get aggressive with it. Instead of that ugly, bouncing, snapping feeling out back, the car starts behaving more like it should. This kind of mod usually costs somewhere around $150 to $300 depending on brand and setup, which is exactly why I like it. The difference it can make is bigger than a lot of parts people buy first. Plenty of owners will spend more than that on cosmetic junk or some loud exhaust component they barely needed, while ignoring something that actually helps the car use its power better. It is also a smart mod because it fixes a real weakness instead of pretending to add something magical. Better traction feel, better rear-end control, less drama when the car loads up. That is real improvement. On the right Mustang, that money goes a lot further than people think. Number 10. E-Track cargo setup for Maverick. The The Maverick is exactly the kind of truck where a smart cargo setup makes more sense than chasing random accessories. A lot of owners bought it because they wanted something compact, cheap to run, and actually useful day to day. Then they throw bags, tools, cleaning products, groceries, small parts, or weekend gear into the bed with no plan at all, and after 2 weeks the whole thing turns into a sliding mess. That is why the flex bed style setups and simple e-track ideas are worth it. Not because they look impressive, but because they make the bed behave like a space you can actually manage. One divider, one cheap anchor setup, a couple of tie-down points used properly, and suddenly the Maverick stops acting like a shallow open box where everything smashes into everything else. This is one of those mods that saves money in stupid little ways. Paint cans stay upright, toolboxes stop slamming into the side, smaller gear stops getting crushed. You do not keep rebuying straps, bins, or cheap organizers that do not fit the truck properly. And for the kind of owner who uses a Maverick for mixed life, errands in the week, DIY stuff on weekends, maybe some work gear, this matters more than almost any flashy mod. I have seen plenty of owners spend money trying to make a small truck look tougher when what they actually needed was to make it easier to use. If the bed is disorganized, the truck becomes annoying. Once it is sorted, the whole vehicle feels more useful. That is a better upgrade than a lot of people realize. Number 11. Bed power. Useful outlet setups. A lot of Ford owners like the idea of power in the bed, but never think through how useful that can become once the truck is set up properly. I am not talking about gimmicks, I mean real daily use. Charging batteries, running a small compressor, powering tools for a quick job, plugging in lights, or keeping simple equipment going without digging around for some cheap extension cord solution that always ends up being a pain. This is why I rate usable bed power setups so highly on trucks where it makes sense. On something like an F-150 or Lightning, the truck can already do more than most owners ask from it. The mistake is leaving that capability in the brochure instead of building your use around it. A guy will spend hundreds on extra gear, separate battery packs, or a generator he barely maintains, while the truck itself is sitting there ready to solve half those problems. Even on trucks without a big factory power setup, owners can still make the bed more useful with a clean, sensible approach instead of bolting and junk. The point is not to turn the truck into a science project. The point is to make it easier to use when real life happens. Storm cleanup, job site work, camping, roadside stuff, house projects, all the boring moments where practicality matters more than horsepower. The good part about this kind of mod is that once you have it, you stop improvising. And the people who are always improvising are usually the same people buying things twice because the first solution was lazy. Number 12. Aux switches, lighting done right. This ends up at number 1 because so many Ford owners waste money on lighting the dumb way. They buy bars, pods, strips, brackets, and whatever else looked aggressive online, then wire it badly, overload cheap circuits, or turn the truck into a rolling electrical headache. That is why a proper switch setup matters so much more than people think. If you are going to add lights or powered accessories to a Bronco, Ranger, F-150, or any Ford that actually gets used, the smartest move is starting with control and wiring, not with the brightest thing in the catalog. A clean aux switch setup changes the whole job. It makes the accessories easier to manage, easier to troubleshoot, and far less likely to become the kind of mess that bites the owner later. This matters because bad wiring is one of the least sexy ways to waste money. Flickering lights, battery drain, weird electrical issues, dead accessories, broken connectors, hours of labor tracing a bad install. None of that is rare. And once somebody has paid for the lights, paid for the install, and then paid again to fix the bad install, the cheap route suddenly looks expensive. The reason I respect this mod is that it solves the foundation first. You want ditch lights, work lights, trail lights, bed lights, compressor controls, whatever, fine. But if the truck is going to carry accessories, do it in a way that does not turn into future shop time. Owners love buying visible parts because they can show them off. The wiring side gets ignored because it is less exciting. In real life, the hidden part is usually the part that decides whether the whole thing was worth doing at all.